Thanks, Vishal, and a warm welcome to all the participants on this call. I'd like to welcome Mr. Amit Jain, who has taken over as Global CEO and will play a leading role in taking Sterling and Wilson Solar to greater heights. He'll continue to operate from our Dubai office, and Amit is a veteran in EPC sector with over 29 years of experience in various industries such as renewable, oil and gas, chemical, process plants, power transmission, and telecom infrastructure. He's an engineer from Delhi University and holds an MBA degree in international business. He's been instrumental in developing US and Australia as our key markets for the company as its country head. As Amit takes over the global operations of the company, we look forward to his leadership in bringing a new perspective and generate greater momentum for the company's growth globally. I will continue playing an active role as director of the company and will focus on business strategy and organization developments and overall growth directions. It is a matter of great satisfaction and privilege that we have all created Sterling Wilson Solar to be among the leading global solar EPC companies and with leadership positions across many geographies. I look forward to working in close partnership with Amit and discovering newer paths and solutions to grow our solar EPC business in dynamically growing newer markets across the globe. Thank you, and over to you, Amit.
Yeah, thank you, Vikesh, and warm welcome to all the participants. I'm truly honored and humbled to have been entrusted with the opportunity to lead Sterling and Wilson Solar with exciting long-term global opportunities in solar and with our dynamic team. I'm sure that we'll continue to be a global leader in the solar EPC space. I would like to give a quick update on the solar industry, post which I shall provide a quick update on our business operations in Q4 financial year 21. The prices of solar modules have seen an unprecedented increase over the past few months, which has impacted the overall global solar industry. Several module manufacturers are refusing to honor signed contracts, even the projects are short-term in nature and LCs have been open for the supplies. Further, since September 2020, and as mentioned on our previous earnings call, there continues to be a disruption in the supply chain due to COVID-19 and upward trend in the prices for the aluminum, copper, and steel, along with increase in freight costs. All these unprecedented factors have created short-term headwinds for the solar EPC industry. This is a global phenomenon and has caused large losses across the industry. It has also led to customers delaying new projects as they are waiting for the prices to stabilize. While the bid pipeline is very promising, we feel that finalization of large contracts will pick up only from Q3 onwards. On the operation side, there has been slowdown in one of the projects in a particular geography due to a subcontractor going insolvent with whom we had successfully worked in an earlier project. Consequently, we had to appoint an alternate subcontractor at a higher cost due to the labor restrictions due to COVID. On the market opportunities and industry growth, there have been delays in the finalization of orders since January 2021 due to cost disruptions as explained above. However, we continue to see a lot of traction in key markets like US, Australia, Europe, and South America, and expect order finalization to pick up from Q3. We expect the market to grow in the range of 10 to 15% over next 3 to 5 years. Our global presence provides us a lot of flexibility in selecting projects globally. Most of our clients are looking at significant capacity additions, and we continue to remain confident of the opportunities going ahead. Additionally, solar projects, along with energy storage and floating solar, are also poised to grow substantially in near future. We have a very strong team and technical partnerships to take up a leading role in the emerging fields as well. With carbon emissions reduction becoming a global consensus, the opportunity for solar power industry will continue to remain enormous and keep on growing at rapid pace over next 2 to 3 decades. We are also expanding our O&M platform and expect to significantly gain market share. Our target is to operate and manage over 14 to 15 gigawatts of projects by financial year 24 which will include both projects constructed by ourselves as well as the third-party projects. Coming to the performance for the year, we had a strong order inflow of 1.96 gigawatts, amounting to rupees 7,936 crores in FY21, which is higher by 72% as compared to the total restated order inflow in FY20. However, our revenue growth in FY21 was impacted on account of lower revenues in Q4 on account of COVID-19 and a prime subcontractor going bankrupt in Australia and delay in opening LCs for materials. Despite a very challenging year, we have been able to bag robust order inflows, and our gross unexecuted order value before adjusting for revenues post 31st March stands at 9,348 crores as on 30th June 2021. Given the steep increase in prices of modules and commodities, there are ongoing discussions with the customers for the revised prices and the timelines in respect of orders amounting to rupees 2,030 crores. These projects have not commenced and are part of our unexecuted order value. We expect majority of our remaining outstanding order book of 7,318 crore to be executed over next 12 to 15 months. With this, I will ask Mr. Bahadur, our CFO, to take you through the consolidated financial highlights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amit, and good morning, friends. I will take you through the consolidated financials for the year ended March 31st, 2021. Before we run through the financials, as always, I would like to reiterate that being an EPC company, the revenue, order inflows, and gross margins could be lumpy due to geographical mix and stage of execution of the project in any particular quarter, and hence comparison on corresponding previous period will not be a true reflection of the performance for a quarter, nor could it be representative for the full year. Revenue for FY21 has been at 5,081 crores as compared to 5,575 crores in FY20. Revenue was lower in FY21 due to lower revenue in Q4 on account of COVID-19, a prime subcontractor going bankrupt in Australia and its related effects, and delay in opening LCs for materials. The region-wise revenue breakup is as follows. Australia contributed about 42.5%, Americas contributed 20.6%, followed by India, which contributed 23.8%, MENA region with 11.3%, and balance 1.5% by Africa. Our O&M revenue has increased by 37% to 252 crores in FY21 compared to 184 crores in FY20, with an EBIT margin of 39.5%. The contribution of O&M business to total revenue grew to 4.9% in FY21 as compared to 3.3% in FY20. At a company level, gross margins for Q4 FY21 were impacted by rupees 374 crores. This includes exceptional items of 208 crores, COVID-related impact of 109 crores, and provision for liquidated damages of 57 crores. Exceptional items include cost of 102 crores towards appointment of an alternate subcontractor at higher prices due to a prime subcontractor going bankrupt in a particular geography, with whom the company had worked on previous projects. B, module price increase impact of about 85 crores due to suppliers not honoring their contracts. And C, increase in commodity and freight costs resulting in an impact of 21 crores. Additionally, there has been a COVID-related impact of almost 109 crores due to delay in execution of projects. And further, we have made a provision of rupees 57 crore as a matter of abundant precaution for any likely liquidated damages. Recurring overheads in FY21 reduced by 70 crores to rupees 324 crores due to cost efficiency measures undertaken, along with reduction in traveling costs due to COVID-19. Our recurring overheads as a percentage of revenue reduced from 7.1% in FY20 to 6.4% in FY21 in spite of a drop in turnover. We are working on various cost reduction initiatives and expect overheads to reduce further. Additionally, there have been non-recurring overheads in FY21 of 49 crores, which include provision for indirect tax, goodwill write-off on conversion of a partially owned subsidiary to a wholly owned subsidiary, and expected credit loss provision on IL&FS. EBITDA losses for FY21 is rupees 363 crores due to lower gross margins and under absorption of overheads. Coming to other comprehensive income, the group had taken forward contracts including cross-currency hedges to hedge the exposure of currency fluctuation in respect of receivables from customers, trade payables and letters of credit. The Australian dollar INR derivative contracts were taken for receivables from customers, and Australian dollar to US dollar and US dollar to INR derivative contracts were taken for trade payables and letter of credit payments. The strengthening of the Australian dollar has resulted in the other comprehensive income having a mark-to-market loss on a notional basis of about 96 crores. On utilization of forward contracts on the date of maturity, the effective portion of the cash flow hedge reserves previously now recognized in other comprehensive income is recycled into the profit and loss account, which would be offset by increase in revenue for restatement on receivables and payables. Now coming to the balance sheet, I would once again like to reiterate, as part of the amended Articles of Association of the company, it cannot give loans to promoters or their affiliates post-listing. The external term debt outstanding as on June 30th, 2021 is rupees 74 crores. Decrease in borrowings is on account of repayment of ICDs and cash flow from operations. Since listing, we have repaid a total of 2,437 crores through internal accruals and money received from group companies on collection of intercorporate deposits. The repayment schedule of term debt is Q2 FY22 and Q3 FY22 and involves a payment of 34 and 40 crores respectively. We have a cash and cash equivalent of approximately rupees 220 crores and a net worth of 658 crores as on March 31st, 2021. As of March, we had a negative working capital of 530 crores as compared to a positive net working capital of 178 crores as on March 2020. Improvement in working capital was driven by combination of higher collection, efficient management of working capital, and advance from customers. Of the receivables due for more than 1 year, as at March 31, 2020, we have been able to settle old receivables of almost 177 crores during FY21 and are confident of recovering most of the overdue balances. The total intercorporate deposits repaid during FY21 was 447 crores, including interest of 123 crores. An additional 162 crores was repaid post-April till June 2021. As at 30th June, ICD stood at 723 crores, including interest accrued, which, as mentioned by the promoters, will be paid latest by September 30th, 2021. On the cash flow front, during the quarter, we had a net operating cash flow from operations of 201 crores as compared to 338 crores for FY20. Cash flow from operations and investing activities have been used to repay borrowings and interest thereon. With this, we can now open the floor to questions and answers.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles.
Apologies for the delay. We take the questions from the line of Avadhoot Joshi from Newberry Capitals. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for the opportunity. I was looking at slide number 4 of the presentation. If you look at the geographical diversification, Australia has become a dominant part of our order book. From 20.8%, now it has become 69.1%. So I would like to know how it has progressed over the period within 1 year, such a sudden increase in the order book from Australia. Plus, I want to look at it at 3 points now because of one we mentioned about our subcontractor going bankrupt. That second and the second wave taking place in Australia. So how it will affect our business going further? That's my first question.
Yeah. So, good morning, Mr. Joshi. So, Australia, as you see, we have been significantly growing our operation in Australia, and it has contributed significantly to order book. And we see that going forward as well, that Australia will be contributing a significant portion of orders to our order book. And we have a very strong pipeline there, and we see even this year going to be roughly a pipeline of 3 gigawatt, which we'll be targeting in Australia. And so Australia is going to be considerably a considerable part of our portfolio. As far as going for the subcontractor, so that has been managed, and now we are moving ahead with our project. And we have worked considerably on that part. We have increased our due diligence with our subcontractors, and we are taking all precautions. So we feel that we have mitigated that risk for our future projects.
Just to add, we also have one of our fellow subsidiaries in Australia, which is involved in labor subcontracting. We have now strengthened that subsidiary to avoid, to further mitigate the risk of subcontractors not being able to meet their obligations.
Okay. And about the second wave and lockdowns going on in Australia, how it is affecting our business?
So as far as second, that is limited to Australia has minimum impact of COVID, and the impact is limited to big cities. So far, our projects, construction work has not been impacted by the COVID wave in Australia. This current wave is not impacting our construction work so far.
Okay. Second question about Reliance entering into during their recent AGM, they announced they want to enter into this solar business end to end. So how it will going further? It's in future, I think. So how it will impact us? How it will benefit us in the future? Any thoughts about it?
Yeah. So I think with the entrance of a big developer like Reliance, it will widen the market. And as far as Sterling Wilson is concerned, we have a huge geographical reach. Typically, in the last 2 years, we are present in all the continents across the world and we are very active. So we don't see any impact on our business so far, but we see that that's a positive step for the industry and it will help in the growth of the industry.
Okay. If I can squeeze in with last one. Mr. BK Sogra bought 1% of equity on 19th of the March of the market transaction. So what was the value of the transaction if you could provide it?
So I think I will
answer this question. As it was mentioned at the time of filing of the prospectus, Mr. Bikesh Ogra was to be given 1% equity from one of the promoters, and it is that promise that has been fulfilled. So it has been a transfer inter se of promoter to Mr. Bikesh Ogra, as was disclosed in the prospectus at the time of filing.
Okay, understood. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dixit Doshi from Whitestone Financial Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. The first question is, regarding the margin. So obviously this year we had an impact and we have done a lot of provisions also. One-off provisions are also there. So let's say, how do you see margins from FY22 Because considering whatever prices of modules or commodity are there today.
So right now, the COVID impact is still there in a few parts of the world. We would be able to provide a better margin guidance when we are coming out for our Q1 call in about 40 days from now. That would be the right time when we will be able to give the correct impact if the COVID waves have dropped. If not, it will be a continuing guidance which we'll have to keep giving quarter on quarter. As of right now, we would not be in a position to specifically answer this.
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mohit from DM Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. And the two questions. So first is on the write-off or always write-off or the unexpected costs we have accounted in Q4 FY21. So is there any increase of further impact in ongoing quarter of this particular amount, or do you think it is largely over?
So it would be a little presumptive to say it is over. What we have done is we have therefore adjusted our margins. Whatever impact is attributable to FY21 as a one-off has been considered in FY21. The margins which were present earlier, or a higher number, have been adjusted on the basis of the module price increases which we have factored in. As of right now, it is very difficult to say if there are further impacts or not. Freight prices are still at their all-time high. As you would have seen in our presentation, commodity prices have kept going up. And of course, module prices over the last few months have shown an almost 30% increase. On the basis of best available information and future knowledge, the company has already done all its adjustments. But these are very, very uncertain times for me to give an answer whether there would be anything further. As of right now, on the basis of best management estimates, everything has been considered.
Secondly, sir, are we, and of course, I understand that we are negotiating with the customer on the price increases. In your opinion, do you think the customers are, coming to the table and are open to negotiate the prices?
Yeah. So at this stage, I would only like to share that discussions are going on with the customers, and customers are receptive to the idea and they understand the global situation. But I would not like to make any futuristic statement in that regard. But definitely we are engaging and customers are receptive and they understand the global situation.
And lastly, sir, are our vendors, the Chinese vendors of solar module, are they asking for a higher increase than their contractual, commitments?
Yes, that is correct. So we had passed on signed back-to-back contracts with our module suppliers, but due to the disruption in the module supply chain, they have come back with the higher prices.
So it is important to note that they were signed contracts with the vendors, so it was not some open-ended liability. These people some of them have reneged on signed contracts.
And these are we talking about Tier 1 module manufacturers. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely.
So lastly, on the pipeline, how do you see the pipeline discussion? Of course, you did mention that it will start from Q3, but if you can comment something on geography-wise, some outlook for the H2 FY22.
Yeah, so we see a very strong pipeline in all the geographies we are in. So, and Australia, US, and Europe, they continue to lead the pack. So if you talk about specific number, both in Australia and US, we see close to 3 gigawatt pipeline in each of the geographies. And Europe and the LATAM, both put together, they also go close to 4 gigawatt. And India, we have a Middle East has a pipeline of 4 gigawatt, and India has a pipeline of 6 gigawatt. But we'll see, as you know, due to the ongoing turmoil in the market with respect to module prices and commodity pricing, so we'll get to know how much of this pipeline will go ahead in Q3 and Q4, and how many of the projects will be realized on the ground. So based on that, the orders will be converted. But at this point of time, we see a very strong pipeline and the projects on the ground in all the geographies, approximately 20 gigawatt pipeline, which is 20 gigawatt in total across the globe.
Okay, understood, sir. Thank you, sir, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Deepesh Agarwal from UTI Asset Management Company. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. My first question is, in India, there are some large developers, utilities, who are looking at splitting up the EPC contract, that is procuring the equipment and supplying it to the contractor and just awarding the contract on the construction basis. How does this change the addressable opportunity per project for players like us?
So actually, though all kind of market exists in India, so there are developers which are providing module minus all construction and supply contracts, and they are the developers which are awarding the contract on absolutely stripped down version and only construction. But our target market, we are focusing primarily on module construction, EPC minus module model, which is predominantly we are targeting, and that's our target market is in India.
Okay, so pure construction is not our target market.
No.
Understood. And sir, secondly, do we have plans to enter into segments like solar rooftops?
We are already in solar rooftops in India, but now we would. It's a very small segment from us, which is not a value add. We are evaluating what we need to do, and from that.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anuj Jain from Globe Capital. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Sir, my question is, as you have mentioned that we are negotiating with the customers regarding increase in solar prices. So as we have taken the hit in this current quarter, so can we expect some kind of write back if we have been given that, if we are successful in those negotiations?
So at this point of time, so I will take Bahadur to take this one.
All right. So the discussions, as Mr. Amit has mentioned, is ongoing with the customers. As of right now, what we have taken are the downsides. If anything comes in, but it's still early to say. As Amit says, the customers are receptive, so we do not want to give any optimistic view. But if there are any upsides, they would probably come in the next year, if customers are agreeable to our calls that we have given to them.
Okay. And sir, can you please explain this higher execution cost due to delays, which is roughly of 109 crore? I mean, due to delays, I could not get that. What kind of delay is that? And if it is because of COVID, so it is mutually decided between the, between the client and you that it has been delayed. So delay of what sort of exactly?
See, there is delay in execution because of shortage of subcontractors, shortage of labor, COVID impact, restrictions in cross-border movement. Generally, in a contract, when there is a force majeure, you get an extension of time. You don't get cost. So these are all the additional site-related costs that we had to incur for the long gestation that we have spent on these projects due to COVID over the last 1 year. Once again, we have put claims on some of our customers. We have not recognized any of those. So therefore, these are all the higher execution costs due to delay in time on account of COVID.
So in case...
This is spread across geographies.
Okay. So as, in case a situation gets again, some kind of lockdowns are there, so we can expect again some kind of execution delays going forward? Hello?
Yeah, so Will not like will not like to comment on that now, but that all depends upon how the COVID situation unfolds, and that is totally unpredictable.
And sir, one last question. I mean, with respect to past orders which are in hand, we are negotiating with the clients. So going forward, for all the orders which we are going to bid in near future or in the coming financial year, in the current financial year, how we are building that, building that impact of rising module prices, future risk of, and commodity prices, labor shortage and trade and everything. So how we are going to mitigate going forward that in our future contracts?
Yeah. So we are working on multiple strategies to mitigate that risk. So going forward, we will be discussing with our clients more. So already, even for the short-term contract, we will be having more stringent contracts with Chinese module supplier and asking for higher amount of bid guarantees, so that we are more secure and prices are secure. And we'll be building a mechanism with safeguards with our customers as well. So we are working on multiple strategies to mitigate this risk going forward.
Okay, sir. That's it from my side. In case if I have further questions, I'll get back into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Riddhesh Gandhi from Discovery Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. You guys had indicated earlier that we had a pass-through effectively on all our input costs, including panels, etc. So just wanted to understand the reason why, if we have a pass-through, we are taking such a large hits on some of the pieces.
Actually, you are right that on all the large contracts, we have passed through. But on the shorter duration contracts, as has been indicated on past, that we are signing back-to-back orders. And we are protected till the time we had an arrangement at the time of closing the contract and entering a back-to-back agreement. But in the current scenario, the volatility was so high that Tier 1 Chinese contractors have gone back even on the signed contracts. So that way we were totally protected, but agreed and signed contracts have been reneged by the suppliers. So we were totally protected because contracts were totally back-to-back and signed, and LCs were in place. Despite that, the contracts were not honored by the counterparties.
Got it. And how do we prevent this from happening in the future again? Are we going to effectively tweak the way in which we had the contracts, or are we not going to? I don't think we have an option to not operate with the same suppliers, right? Because we only have a few large, the steel manufacturers.
Yeah, so we will be having mostly we will try that it is a pass-through. The risks are passed on to the customer. And we will also work out on a mechanism with our supplier for a higher BGs, so that we are protected. So right now, whatever the amount of BGs are, we are planning to increase a significant increase in the quantity, like amount of securities we have from our suppliers, so that we are well protected there.
And are there any legal implications that we can take against our suppliers for having defaulted on the agreement? And what are the actions? Because I'm assuming, as the largest EPC player actually globally, they wouldn't typically like to sort of renege on a contract with us.
They renege on contracts with
not
just us.
We have those. Yeah. So what is happening, that though we have mechanism in the contracts that we can take legal action, but we are re-signing the contract, and we have to complete our contracts with our customer. So at this point of time, we have to take our EPC project forward, and we will not be going ahead with the legal options. So this is not the problem only faced by EPCs, but even the biggest developers in the world is encountering this issue, and they're not able to manage the modules, module suppliers. So we are somehow managing the supplies so that projects can be completed in the shortest possible time.
No, I get that, but look, at the end of the day, we aren't the IPP, right? We are the EPC players. So if it's going to impact our profits, shouldn't we be sort of, it's stopping the person taking the legal action because we aren't earning adequate returns to take actually the commodity risk in our projects, right?
No, I understand that, and we fully appreciate that situation. But as you know, this is a very, very unfortunate and unforeseen condition where the suppliers have gone back on signed contracts. And as explained earlier, that we are taking it back to the customers also to the extent we can be compensated. So that those discussions are on. But this was one of situation, and hopefully we see that we'll be taking considerable measures to protect ourselves in future against this eventuality.
And this has happened with all EPC contractors across the world, not just Sterling Wilson Solar. So the entire solar industry is suffering this at the moment.
It has happened to all. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's all for me.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhineet from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So I have 3 questions. First, let's assume hypothetically, the freight charges remain at these prices along with, copper and aluminum and the other parts along with module. So going into F22, based on the contracts that we have as of now, how much of additional hit we will have to take? I am assuming status quo in everything in terms of prices.
So Abhineet, if there is status quo in all the prices, we have already factored in the hit by taking whatever additional hits have to be taken in FY21 and lowered the margin expectation project by project for FY22. So if there are no further hits as you have put it, there would be no additional one-off. It will be part of the standard project cost that we have factored for the next year.
Okay, so no cost, let's say from gross margin perspective, because we are assuming that prices remain here, but the only cost additional could be COVID-related cost, as you had mentioned earlier, that any more elongation of COVID across the globe can have some impact, right?
There is just one point which I would like to note, and that is that the margins would obviously now be lowered for such projects where the additional costs have been taken. All I'm saying is the adjusted margin as of March is what will continue in the next year. So it would not be the margin that is at the stage of booking, but what is adjusted after taking all the impacts now.
Any broader sense what that or what that margin could be? Very broad, because I think as you rightly said that there would be a downtick on that.
No broad sense at the moment. As we said, we are still in uncertain times, so we do not wish to give a guidance at this stage. We will take it up in the next quarterly meeting and further going forward.
Okay. Secondly, see the Indian market as it looks from the government policy and a lot of players announcing their capacities, look that this market probably will range anywhere between 10 to 15 gigawatts and probably running up higher in the coming years. Now, what I want to understand in this utility scale number, what typically is our, consideration set? I mean, there are players of different types, right? As you had mentioned as well, developers who just want EPC contractors to put in their modules, pricing of the developer, or there would be a whole lot of turnkey. So, what of the overall market? What is our consideration set in this?
So I'll just start off and Mr. Amit can then add.
We expect India pipeline to... Yeah.
Sorry, Amit. Sorry, I think there is a lag on my phone. You may please continue.
Okay. So, as I indicated earlier, we are the most dominant player in India, established player in the EPC market in India. And we see this market to be growing considerably and continue to be a strong market for us. At this point of time, we see this year as a pipeline of roughly 7 gigawatts, which we hope to target, and we continue with the entrance of new markets and growth of the market. This will continue to grow even in the segment which we are targeting. So we see market growing and our market share going up in the Indian space. About can add further to that.
Yeah, further to what Mr. Amit has said, in India, our general market is without module, the rest of the EPC. So we do not engage in stripped down EPC models. Generally in India, the module is taken care of by the developer. The rest by us.
Okay, that's it from my side. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Manoj Dua from Geometric. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. I understand this is an unfortunate, unprecedented situation in terms of raw material price increase, and the suppliers have gone back to their contract. And we are honoring because it's a part of a business going forward. So it seems that the suppliers are in very dominant position in this value chain. So I know that this situation will not come back again and again, but how do we see in future this dominancy to continue? Because it may hurt us in terms of working capital, their credit terms. So how do you see in future to go forward on the supplier front?
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Dua. So there's a disturbance coming from your line. Request you to mute your line while the management answers your question.
Yeah. So see the future bits. Whatever we are bidding at this point of time, it is getting factored in our prices. And so if the status quo remains, we are going to maintain and we are going to build in the volatility into our prices. As we have said, we are going to give on the module part. If the instability and volatility remains in the market, we are going to go with the pass-through model, and we are going to go with our suppliers with the demand of higher BG to secure safety and maintaining the price. Right now, the level of the securities and bank guarantees which we are getting from our module suppliers is around 5%. And going forward for the new contracts, we'll be seeking more security to build in the safety features so that we are fully protected against any such volatility. And we'll be working on other mechanisms to protect other commodity price hikes into our bids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shivan from JHP Securities. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. One question on the O&M piece. We scaled it up pretty well. It's at 8 gigawatts right now. Any target what we would like to achieve over the next couple of years?
Hello? Yeah, so we want to be around 18 to 19 gigawatts by good morning. We target to be around 18 to 19 gigawatts by 2024 in O&M space. So right now, our predominant portion of the portfolio comes from India. But going forward, we are planning to go globally as
Amit,
O&M space.
Amit, can I come in here? Amit,
and we'll be expanding our O&M business in India.
Amit, can I come in here? This is the case. Yeah. Sorry to interject. I think probably we are targeting.
Please.
We are targeting 18 to 19 gigawatts by 2027, and we will be targeting around 14 to 15 gigawatts by 2024. That's the broad understanding on how we are approaching the O&M business. Just to get a slight iteration done on the numbers that you just mentioned. Sorry about that.
Okay, so it's approximately 14 to 15 by FY24, right? If I heard it correct.
That's right.
Okay. And sir, considering we're going to be entering into other geographies, how would the margins turn out to be? The realizations and then the margins.
So historically, the margins have been margin around 35. Yeah, go ahead, Amit.
No, please carry on the question. Yeah.
No, so just continuing on the O&M bit.
Has been 35 to 40%.
Hello, am I audible?
I'm sorry, there seems to be a lag in the conversation. So, am I audible now? This is Vikesh.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, so we've been targeting a range of 35 to 40% on the O&M margin, and going forward also that would be the range that we would be targeting. I think that's how we are approaching the O&M business.
Okay, sir. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Puneet from HSBC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. My first question is, what gives you confidence that these orders will come back in 3Q? Do you foresee a risk that if module prices remain high into 3Q, 4Q, the entire execution might be pushed back by another 6 months?
No, we don't expect that, but we will give you higher visibility of our order pipeline in next quarter, but we don't expect that to happen.
Is there any indication that module prices are coming down in 3Q? Because that should be the key monitorable, right?
No, I will not take a futuristic call on that, but we will not like to answer that question, because though we expect market to not be normal, but we'll be able to make a better assessment in next quarter.
Okay, understood. My second question is, like in India, a lot of large developers have now taken to do EPC themselves. Are you seeing any of these trends in the global markets as well?
Global markets, because the business model is very different, so though that model already exists in some of the markets, but we don't see that happening because the project financing models are very different and they require complete track from EPC contractors. So we don't see that happening in our predominant geographies, US, Australia, and Europe.
Okay, understood. That's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sagar Parekh from Deep Financial Consultants. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, sir, and thank you for taking my question. My only question is on this. As you said that you had bank guarantees of 5% with the module suppliers in China or from anywhere where you source. Why haven't we looked at encashing that BGs if they have defaulted or if they have refused to honor their contracts?
I'll take that question. The bank guarantees, while on the case of the vendor side is about 5%, let us not forget that at the same time our customer holds our BGs for a much larger value. Projects have to be completed on time, and therefore this becomes a matter of negotiation. As we have mentioned earlier, therefore to balance this risk, we are now going to seek an equivalently high bank guarantees from our vendors going forward, such that the risk is equally felt by them which right now, when you're having a 35% price increase, a 5% bank guarantee is not going to be very significant to deter him to honor his contract.
But then will they, or are they looking at, in the new contracts, if you say that you are going for higher security, but they should be willing to accept that. So has that willingness come from them, or it's
a matter
still
of ongoing negotiation right now? Both, so we are fighting on several fronts, talking with our customers also, as Mr. Amit explained, as well as talking to our vendors. It's a matter of ongoing discussion. We were asked as to how is it a risk mitigation. So this was our proposal.
Okay, sure. Okay, that's it from my side, and thanks.
And most EPCs will not take the risk.
Sure.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Gandhi from KFS Trade Capital. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks for taking my question. I have two questions. So one is, can you give some color on order book? How much, what the size of the short-term contract where price fluctuations are on our head? And secondly, against whatever last year one-time hit we have taken, how much claims aggregating we have put forth, which may or may not materialize? Thank you.
So I'll answer the first question. I would not in the moment want to answer the second. Claims are a matter of ongoing discussions with various customers. So whilst we have put in, we wouldn't want to quantify that value right now. As far as the short-term contracts versus the long-term, the module risk versus the non-module risk, for the next year, the carry-forward orders, it would be roughly in the range of 50-50.
And out of 50, which are long-term contracts, we are having some cost hit on our part?
No. So the cost hit has been factored in majorly to the extent the knowledge is available with the management as of date. If there is anything further, if it comes in, yes, it will be once again a matter of discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pallavi from the Consulting Point. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my question. Just wanted to know what is the time period for our fixed price contracts?
You mean on the customer side?
No.
Most of our projects in the
Sorry, I didn't get that. Time period for the fixed price contracts for us.
Yeah, so most of our contracts are between 12 to 15 months duration. So that's the most of our contracts, and the longer contracts go to 18 to 21 months.
Right. No, so I was asking in terms of a bifurcation, in terms of fixed price, with no escalation clause. The duration of those.
All our contracts are fixed price contracts.
Okay, sir. And so, secondly, would you be open to taking on a strategic partner in terms of the promoters diluting stake in case the growth opportunities are very big?
So that's something only maybe the promoters can answer. We as management cannot answer that question.
Right, sir. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Amit Jain for closing comments.
Yeah. We'd like to again thank everyone for joining this call and for your continued support all the while. I hope we have been able to address all your queries. For any further information, kindly get in touch with Mr. Vishal Jain, our Strategic Growth Advisors, our Investor Relation Advisors. And thank you once again, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Sterling and Wilson Solar Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.